Hello, this is Isaiah Reports Football, and this is my 2026 FIFA World Cup um, tier list grading system of each country or participant of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and this is one of my only few videos that I'm going to make regarding the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This, and then the final one, um, which is which is like one of the final ones, possibly. I'm still considering neither doing a working every single match in the World Cup, but that might be too many games. So that's a 50-50. I might not do it. We'll see. And but definitely you know, um I'm going to do ranking 2026 FIFA World Cup against other World Cups that I watch. I'm ranking them, and that will be my final video regarding the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and I'm planning to wrap up for July. Just wrap things up since July is almost over. So yeah. So let's begin. Starting off with the three hosts. Um, with the United States. As a fan of the United States, I'm starting off with the United States, and then I will do Mexico and do Canada finally regarding the host. And then in the other countries, it just came in this order on this tier maker website. So yeah. Regarding the United States, I'll give the United States a high C plus. And it might be harsh. Maybe you, the viewers, could say, "Oh, the United States were decent or good, were dominant in the group stage and stuff like that," which I would agree with. And we were dominant also against Bosnia in the round of 32. But the way we got knocked out against Belgium really, you know, lowered my grade for the United States. If we lost, in a respectable fashion against Belgium, then I will give them like a B minus instead. But the way we lost, really makes me give them really has to really change my way of thinking, and I needed to give them a C plus instead. The United States, even though leading up to that defeat, things were looking good and stuff like that, the way we played football. But once we faced a team that's like, better opposition than like a Turkey, a Paraguay, Australia, a Bosnia, that or you know, or like a like opposition like Belgium, who's like obviously better than those countries, like we'll choke, we'll lose like that. So, and I wish that was a different case, but since we're hosting a World Cup, it didn't. So yeah, and it turned out to be the case. Mexico, I hate Mexico, but I'll give them a B plus since the way they went out is much more respectable against England, where England's a better team than Belgium, and they only lost 3-2 against England. So I'll give them a B minus, like a B minus, even though it doesn't have a B minus in this tier. I will just give Mexico a B minus, and they really were dominant and had good games in the Azteca. So yeah, Canada. And I feel like also finally, I think Mexico, you could argue were the better host, like in terms of performances, like they were the best host. Um, but yeah, Canada. Um, I think Canada again B minus. You could give them where again like B minus where and maybe it's C plus, kind of like where the United States is. Actually, I think I'm gonna do it. Oops, C plus, like a high C plus for Canada as well, since they only finished second in their group, even though they did have Switzerland, and Switzerland is a good team. But they they won. I believe they had to play their games in America in the knockout stages, and they struggled against South Africa. Maybe you should have thanked like Canada. They should be destroying South Africa or at least winning comfortably. And they had to score. They had a late winner from Estacio against South Africa 1-0, and they also got destroyed against Morocco 3-0. But against Morocco, it wasn't a horrible game in the first half, but in the second half, I think Morocco absolutely dominated them. So that's why maybe Canada should get a C plus for this tournament. And I was thinking about B minus at first, but after thinking about it in this video, I think C plus is right for Canada. South Africa, I'll give them a C. It would just be a normal C since at first I was worried for them after getting destroyed against Mexico and they could have lost by worse. They were lucky that they only lost by 2-0. But they got a good draw against Czech Republic, and they won against South Korea 1-0, I believe. So that helped them get in second place. And their performance against Canada was respectable. So I think a C is good for South Africa. South Korea, I give them a D since they were very poor, and their manager, Hong Myung-go, got sacked right after they got knocked out from the tournament. So, and it was just again like leading up to the tournament, I said that South Korea, I wasn't really confident in them because of their manager, where he doesn't know how to get the best out of their out of the players like Lee King-in and Sung Ho-min, etc., which showed in this tournament, and that's why he got fired. And then regarding Czech Republic, I'll give them a D. They absolutely got destroyed against Mexico. They bottled a 1-0 lead against South Africa, and they lost also against South Korea 2-1 in the first game for them. So, yeah, it wasn't a good tournament from Czech Republic. But you have to give them, I guess, a benefit of doubt where, they had a new manager in Quebec. And plus, they had to go through the playoffs through qualifying, so they aren't like a great team or anything like that. So, yeah. Bosnia, I'll give them a C. I think the way they were able to get to the knockouts is respectable. And, um, some of their young players, like Ala Begovic, had good games against Qatar and stuff like that. Um, but in the end, they got destroyed against the United States in the round of 32, which is, I guess, not destroyed, but dominated, and got dominated against the United States, which is, I guess, expected. So, yeah. But overall, I think it's C is a right grade for, like, Bosnia. They did well in this World Cup. Qatar, is definitely D. They were awful in this World Cup, even though they got a good point against Switzerland in the first game. Just they just went afterwards against Canada. They got destroyed 6-0. And yeah, like um, and yeah, it wasn't it wasn't, and they also lost to Bosnia as well. So got destroyed against Bosnia. So yeah, yeah, just there was like getting that point against Switzerland was really, you know no point really. And yeah, Switzerland, I'll give Switzerland an A actually, because even because they gave a really good game against Argentina and took it all the way to extra time. They won against Colombia on penalties, and Colombia, you could argue, is the second best country in South America, ahead of Brazil. You could argue, which since they finished runner ups in the Copa America, and Switzerland isn't like second best in Europe. They're like way behind other countries, even though they do well in these type of in World Cups and Euros and stuff like that. Like this, defeating the second best country from South America is really good for them. Um, they won against Algeria in the round of 32. They got first place in the group and won against Canada, Qatar, and Bosnia. So yeah, Brazil, I'll give them a C. Where they did get first place in the group. Um, in their group against Morocco, I thought Morocco was going to finish first place, but they were questionable in terms of their performances. Their midfield got cut through against Japan, but against their quality with Martinelli, they made it 2-1, and then against Japan, they were able to get to the round of 16, but they absolutely deservedly got knocked out against Norway. So yeah, I give them Brazil a C. Morocco, Morocco. I will give them like a high B plus. Morocco, where they, even though they couldn't get first place in the group, I think they knocked. I think they're respectable. They knocked out Netherlands, um, and they knocked out the Netherlands, and they lost to France. And France is one of the best teams in the world. So yeah, and Saibari was really good for Morocco, and he just joined Bayern Munich. But maybe Morocco would like to see more depth, more options, just in case like someone like a Saibari's out, and because Saibari wasn't playing against France, and it was hard for Morocco. So maybe in the future for the next major tournaments like the World Cup, like the next World Cup in 2030, they will want more options in their attack, especially, and maybe more physical players in the midfield. Even though Boadi was good and stuff like that, um, maybe they will want more physical presence in there as well. And yeah, maybe better center back where I don't know Diop is Issa Diop. He done well for the Morocco, but maybe you want someone better. So I don't know. Haiti. Um, Haiti. I will give Haiti a D. Uh, but it won't be too low of a D, I guess, because I do think they had an alright game against Scotland. They were in it. They could have made it 1-1. They could have gotten a point against Scotland. Brazil they got destroyed against. But against Morocco, it was a fun game. Wilson Isidore scored a really good goal against Morocco. So yeah, I'll give Haiti a D. Like, but not too low, not the lowest. So yeah, Scotland, I'll give them a D as well. I think um since they obviously were expected to win against Haiti, but they lost against Morocco 1-0. Even though they didn't get destroyed, you could tell that their attack has issues and stuff like that, and you can't argue that Steve Clark is too negative as well on top of that. And then Brazil, they absolutely got destroyed. Like, and they were trying to play out from the back, and then they absolutely got exposed, and it allowed Brazil to score. I believe it was Vinny who scored for Brazil from a horrible Scotland mistake. Try and play out from the back. So yeah, it's a D for Scotland. Paraguay, I'm giving Paraguay an A since they, knocked out Germany, and against France they really had a respectable performance, and they kept it. And against France they only lost 1-0, and conceded, and it was still from a Mbappe penalty, and it wasn't, then so France needed a penalty to score against Paraguay. So I believe that Gustavo Alfaro, the hiring of Gustavo Alfaro, has been really good for Paraguay, and is shown in this World Cup, where and especially in the qualifiers as well, where he knows how to get the best out of teams. That's how he did it. That's how what he did again as Ecuador manager, and then now he's doing it for Paraguay. So yeah. Um, Australia, I give them a C. They were able to get to the knockouts, even though they lost to Egypt on penalties. I was kind of concerned for them leading up to the tournament since their manager Graham Arnold left, and he did well for them. But their new manager Popovich did well and getting them to the knockout. So I give them a C. A C's a fair result for them. Turkey, it's an obvious D for them. They were underperforming again in major tournaments, and they're just individuals. They don't really In the last Euros they did well in 2024, but in the Euro 2021 they got knocked out in groups, and then now the same thing, they got knocked out in groups. And I was concerned about Turkey being in the same group as the United States, but um, you know, they lost against uh you know, they lost against Australia, they lost against Paraguay. Uh, I believe they lost against, or it might have been in a draw. No, I think they lost against Paraguay, uh, but that led to themselves getting knocked out in the group stage. So yeah, it's a disappointing ending for Turkey in this World Cup. The way they ended. Germany, a D. I don't care. Germany destroyed Kershaw 7-1. You know, they kind of struggled breaking down Ivory Coast, and even though they still won, um, they struggled against Ivory Coast breaking them down. They lost to Ecuador, and then they lost against Paraguay in penalties. So and holding to Germany to high standards, it's a D. Kershaw, I'll give them a D, even though they got a good point against Ecuador. They did lose 7-1 against Germany, lost against Ivory Coast, so I think you have to give them a D. Uh, Ivory Coast, I'll um, I'll give them like a very low C. At least made it out of the groups. And same thing for Ecuador, but they absolutely, like, especially Ecuador, they got destroyed against Mexico, and then Ivory Coast lost against Norway. So I'll give both of them like very low C's. Netherlands, I'll give them like a C. You know, I'll give them a C. They were dominant in the group stage, destroyed Sweden, destroyed Tunisia, but they did tie against Japan, and then they lost to Morocco, I believe, in the round of 32. So on penalties. So I'll give them a C minus, something like that, where Morocco's a good team. But having some standards for the Dutch, I'll give them a C. In Japan, I'll give them like a low B minus. I think they weren't horrible, even though they didn't have like Motoma, who was injured. I think they were alright in the World Cup. They got a good draw against Netherlands. Maybe they could have won it, should have won against Sweden compared, both quality, like on paper, you could say Japan's a better team, but they tie against them. They absolutely destroyed Tunisia, and they heartbreakingly lost against Brazil. So they could have gone through, but if Murray also wasn't too defensive after the Japan's one after them leading 1-0, you could have gone for. Or also could have gone for it because they do have the talent to get another goal against Brazil, and they could have gone through against Brazil, but they're too defensive in my opinion. So I'll give them like a low B minus because performance-wise, I don't think they were too bad, and they could have knocked out Brazil if they weren't too defensive. And yeah, Sweden, I'll give them like a C minus. Like they absolutely got destroyed against the Netherlands. Did they get a point against Japan and one against destroyed Tunisia? But they absolutely got destroyed against France in the knockouts. And yeah, and they don't really deserve to be here, to be honest with you. But because of the UEFA Nations League, um, and really helped them to qualify to the World Cup. Tunisia, it's a D for them. They absolutely got destroyed in the group. And it was a mess. They sacked their manager, brought in Hervé Renard, and it still didn't work out. So yeah. Belgium, I'll give Belgium B plus. At first, the group stages were sketchy for them, but throughout the tournament, they gradually grew. They gave a good performance against Spain, even though they got knocked out too and lost 2-1. I think Belgium will be B plus, and as an American fan, like it's harsh to give them a B plus since they knocked us out, but as a neutral, not being biased, I think B plus is a fair result for Belgium since they did have a good tournament and gradually grew and stuff like that. And Charles de Ketelaere had a few good games in non-knockouts for them. Lukaku was a good super sub for them. So I was kind of disappointed with Jeremy Doku. I thought he would have had a good tournament, but he didn't. So yeah. Egypt, I'll give them like a B minus. or B, maybe like a B or something, B minus, something like that. Yeah, where they did get to the knockouts. Hassan, I think, got the best out of his players, like Salah and Marmoush, um, and the Egyptian player who plays at Real Oviedo, who was a really good left winger. He was really good against Argentina. I think his name's Hassan as well. But Egypt, even though they absolutely bottled a 2-0 lead against Argentina, I would give them a B minus since, it's Argentina at the end of the day. And I think, and Ashore was also really good for them. The midfielder scored some goals for them. So I'll give them a B minus for Egypt. Iran, I'll give them a C regarding what's happening. And I believe a few coaches weren't allowed to come to America and stuff like that. And they were unbeaten in the group, even though they weren't able to get to the knockouts. They're still unbeaten in their group. So I'll give them like a C or something like that. New Zealand, I give them a D. Yeah, I give them a D. Since even though it was a good tie against Iran 2-2 for the first game, they lost against Egypt, I think 3-1, and then they absolutely got destroyed against Belgium in the final day. So yeah. Spain, the champions, I give them the S tier since they're the champions. I feel like the way they played, they knew how to dominate, and like they grew into the tournament and stuff like that. And even though the likes of Yamal wasn't good, they had other players performing. Like Oyarzabal was really good in this tournament. Nico Williams, when he comes off the bench, had more impact than Yamal, you could argue. Fabian Ruiz, Rodri was really good. So yeah, I think S tier for them. Uh, Cabo Verde, I'll give them an A. Obviously, they deserve an A for this tournament. Amazing tournament. Their goalkeeper was amazing. Vozinha was amazing for them. Um, and they were getting their federation was prepared for this moment, and it showed because of the results they got in group stage. They didn't lose any games. They got 3 draws. Um, and I said to them, I said in my prediction video where I wouldn't be surprised if I predicted them getting third and getting to the knockouts, but getting second place ahead of a country like Uruguay, even though they're a mess, was really respectable from them, and they really gave a great game to Argentina. So an A for them. Uh, Uruguay D. Sorry, no, Saudi Arabia a D, and Uruguay a D. Honestly, Uruguay are horrendous. Horrendous. France an A. They were dominant throughout this tournament, but against Spain they were outclassed. And yeah, but I'll give them an A though. Senegal, a very low C. At least they made it to the knockouts, but the way they messed up that 2-0 lead against Belgium, that brings it low for me. Iraq, a D. And then even though they were in a very tough group, it's just a D based on the results. Norway, an A. I think they really done well in this tournament. Argentina, I'll give them an A, even though they lost the final. And performance-wise as a team, they weren't really good. I think Messi was really carrying them. But they did have some other, Lautaro Martinez had a moment, Julian Alvarez had a moment against Switzerland. So they had moments, some other players, but overall, though, as a team, it's like, it wasn't really good. But I'll give them an A since they were runners up and they could have done back to back. Algeria, I'll give them a C. It was a fun game between Algeria and Austria, and both of them don't really like each other since they had something happen between them in the World Cup, I believe in the 80s or something, and it was ended in 3-3 in this World Cup. So it was a fun game between them both, but they were very similar. They got both destroyed against Argentina, but they destroyed Jordan to help them get to the knockouts. but they both lost in a round of 32 against better opposition. Austria lost to Spain, and then Austria lost to Switzerland. So, yeah. Jordan, I give them a D. Portugal, I give them a C, since they finished second in their group, only second in their group. And the Colombia's good. Maybe you want to give higher standards to Portugal, where they should be finishing first place. Even, but they couldn't. And plus, the drama with Ronaldo and stuff like that. So a C or C minus, something like that for Portugal. DR Congo, I'll give DR Congo a low B. Actually, I think I was really impressed with them in this World Cup. Defensively, they were strong. They got a really good point against Portugal. Uh, they only lost 1-0 against Colombia. But and they gave a good game against England. So I'll give DR Congo like a B minus. Colombia, I'll give them. Sorry, Uzbekistan, I'll give them a D. Even though the game against Colombia they did well, but they absolutely got destroyed against Portugal. And yeah, Colombia, I give them a B plus grade, like a high B plus, like a B plus grade for Colombia, or maybe like a B somewhere there, like a B. For Colombia, where B plus, something like that. Yeah, B plus, since they finished first place in their group against Portugal, but they did lose against Switzerland on penalties. And then yeah, England, I'll give England a B plus or something like that. Surprisingly, but the way they brought in Tuchel to win the World Cup and they didn't, and the fans are mad at Tuchel, so I guess it's not surprising to put them in the B plus or B category. And they weren't really, and it wasn't really much difference compared to Gareth Southgate, where they just got the results and they didn't really play really great football and dominated oppositions and stuff like that. They just got the result under Tuchel in this tournament, and Bellingham had to carry England. Kane also did as well. So yeah, Croatia a C. I'll give them a C. Croatia, and it's the final tournament for Dalic as manager. And Dalic, for me, did a really good job as Croatian manager over the years. But I have to give them a C. Since they did, they lost 4-2 against England. Even though it was a good first half, second half they dropped off against England. They did get the important wins against Ghana and Panama, but it wasn't really dominant. And they lost against Portugal, and a sketchy Portugal team as well. So, yeah, so a C for them. Ghana, a C for them. I think Carlos Queiroz, I was questioning them about the hiring of Carlos Queiroz, but he did well for Ghana, got the results, got to the knockout. Yeah, they got knockouts, but they lost to Colombia. So I think C for Ghana is a good result for them. C, something like that for Ghana, where Carlos Queiroz got the best out of Ghana. I think the Uranki player, young midfielder for them, is a really interesting player. I believe he plays in Nordsjælland in Denmark, and they're connected with some Ghanaian or some African academy. So yeah, he's an interesting player, and yeah, C for Ghana, and then for Panama, finally I'll give them a D. I was kind of hyping them up because I like Thomas Christensen as their manager, but the quality of players, they don't really have that. And I was watching like the Ghana and Panama game, and it's like they're really struggling to break down Ghana, so the quality of players is not there. But at least they stick to their principles on their Christensen, I guess. But yeah. Hopefully you like this video. Subscribe to this channel, and remember that I might be, I might not, I might be, I don't know, I'm still kind of 50-50, I'm unsure, really. I'm kind of it's unlikely, really, that I will rank every single match of the World Cup. It might be a very interesting idea. It's an interesting idea. Maybe a couple of days from now, maybe I might feel like doing it, I don't know. But definitely on a, final day of July 31st or something, I'm definitely doing a video on ranking every single World Cup that I watched regarding this World Cup, 2022 World Cup, 2018 World Cup, and 2014 World Cup, and ranking them. And that will be that regarding the World Cup, regarding the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and just to wrap up July. And after that, I'll take a break on YouTube from YouTube, um and I'm planning to come back on YouTube for like the nations UEFA Nations League and like international break in September. I'll do content for that because club football does not interest me whatsoever. So yeah, that's a heads up, and yeah, I'll remind you of this again to you viewers on the next video as well on this reminder on this update. So yeah, hopefully again like this video, subscribe to the channel, and interact in comments down below. Thank you.